Welcome to the deep dive. Easter ship, we see the chocolate bunnies, the colorful eggs.
Everywhere.
Exactly. But underneath all that, there's actually a really interesting story.
Mm.
So, our mission today is pretty simple. Let's unpack the basics of Easter for everyone listening.
Sounds good.
We're going to look at, why it hops around the calendar.
Yeah, why isn't it just one date?
Right. And where some of those, shall we say, quirky traditions come from.
Like the bunny.
Like the bunny, absolutely.
Right.
And fundamentally why this day is just so significant for so many people.
Yeah, it's like peeling back the layers, isn't it?
Totally. Peeling back the layers of a holiday we think we know, but maybe don't really get.
That's a great way to put it. Easter, it feels like a fixed point. But when you dig in, wow, it's this fascinating mix of history, belief, culture.
Okay.
And we've gathered some info to hopefully make sense of it all.
Yeah.
Starting with, well, the most basic question. When is Easter?
Okay, yeah, let's start there. Because like we said, it's not like Christmas, right? No fixed date. It's what they call a movable feast. At least in Western Christianity, using the Gregorian calendar, the one, most of us use.
That's the term, yeah, movable feast.
So why? Why the annual shift? What's the secret?
Well, it's not so secret, but it is a bit complex. It comes down to a specific rule, and it involves both the sun and the moon.
Oh, okay, sun and moon.
Right. So in Western Christianity, Easter Sunday is always the first Sunday after the first full moon that happens on or after the spring equinox.
Whoa, okay, say that again slowly. First Sunday.
After the first full moon.
Uh-huh.
That happens on or after the spring equinox. Now, here's a little wrinkle.
Mm-hmm.
For these calculations, the church uses a fixed date for the spring equinox, March 21st. They call it the ecclesiastical equinox.
Got it. So March 21st hits, you wait for the next full moon.
Exactly.
On the Sunday after that full moon.
Boom.
Easter.
You got it. That's the formula. And just so folks know, for 2025, that works out to Sunday, April 20th.
Huh. It's fascinating that it's tied to both, the solar thing, the equinox, and the lunar cycle. Makes you think about ancient calendars.
It really does. And those connections to nature's cycles.
And I know it's slightly different elsewhere, right? For Eastern Orthodox Christians.
That's a really good point.
Yes.
Eastern Orthodox Christianity follows the older Julian calendar, so their calculation is a bit different. Their Easter usually falls on a Sunday between April 4th and May 8th.
Okay.
But interestingly, in 2025, things line up. Both Western and Eastern Orthodox Easter fall on the same day, April 20th.
Oh, wow. That's kind of cool when they coincide.
It is, yeah. It highlights how these different calendar systems work.
So Easter Sunday is the big celebration day, but there's a whole lead up to it, isn't there? I always hear about Ash Wednesday, Lent. How do they fit in?
Oh, absolutely key. Lent is, it's a 40-day period before Easter. It's a time for fasting, prayer, sort of reflection.
3 days.
40 days. To figure out when Lent starts, you count back 40 days from Easter Sunday. But here's the catch. You don't count the Sundays.
Ah, okay. No Sundays in the count.
Right. And that Wednesday where you land, that marks the start of Lent. That's Ash Wednesday. So for 2025, with Easter on April 20th, Ash Wednesday is March 5th.
Okay, March 5th. And Lent is about preparing.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah?
It marks the beginning of remembering what Christians call the Passion of Christ, the events leading up to his death and resurrection. It sort of sets the stage for Holy Week.
Right, Holy Week. That's the final stretch, yeah. Focusing on the end of Jesus' life. What are the main days there?
Yeah, Holy Week really zeroes in on those final days. You have Holy Thursday, which remembers the Last Supper Jesus had with his disciples.
Okay.
Then Good Friday, that's the day Christians commemorate the crucifixion. It's a very solemn day.
Right.
And then, of course, it all builds to the joy of Easter Sunday, the resurrection.
And does the celebration kind of keep going after Easter Sunday? I feel like I've heard about an Easter season.
You have. You're right. For many Protestants, Easter Sunday kicks off what's called Eastertide, or the Easter season. And that actually lasts for 50 days, all the way until Pentecost Sunday.
50 days. Wow.
Yeah. And similarly, in Eastern Orthodox Christianity, they have the Pascha season, which starts on Easter Sunday and goes for 40 days, ending with the Feast of the Ascension.
Okay.
So while Easter Sunday is definitely the peak, it's really part of a much longer period of celebration and reflection, like the main event that starts a whole season of joy.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've got a handle on the when. Let's switch gears to the name itself, Easter. It doesn't sound very biblical, does it? Where does that word come from?
That's a really interesting question, and honestly, there isn't one single definite answer. There are a couple of main theories floating around.
Okay, like what?
Well, one popular idea links it to Aostri. She was a apparently a goddess in old Germanic folklore.
Oh, goddess.
Yeah, associated with spring, fertility, new growth, that sort of thing.
Hmm.
And supposedly her symbols were hares and eggs.
Hares and eggs. That sounds very familiar.
Right. The thinking is that people held springtime festivals way back when, before Christianity spread widely. And maybe, as the Christian holiday took root around the 9th century, the old name just kind of stuck or was adapted.
Huh. So maybe some of those really old spring traditions got sort of absorbed or blended in.
That's a very plausible theory. It often happened that way. New beliefs, finding ways to connect with existing cultural rhythms, makes the transition smoother, perhaps.
Okay, so that's one possibility. What's the other main idea?
The other main theory goes in a different direction. It suggests Easter actually comes from Pascha.
Pascha.
Yeah, P-A-S-C-H-A. That's the Latin version of Pesach, which is the Hebrew word for Passover.
Ah, Passover. Okay, that connection makes sense, especially thinking about the Bible stories. Tell us more about that link.
Sure. So in the Hebrew Bible, Passover is huge. It commemorates the story where the Israelites in Egypt were passed over during a plague because they marked their doors with lamb's blood. Now, fast forward to the New Testament. The Last Supper, that final meal Jesus shared with his disciples. It's widely understood to have been a Passover Seder, a Passover meal.
Okay, so the timing overlaps significantly.
Exactly. And you have these shared themes of sacrifice, deliverance, a lamb. There's a strong connection there.
So we've got these two possibilities. A Germanic spring goddess, Eostre, or the Hebrew word for Passover, Pesach, turning into Pascha, then maybe Easter. Do scholars lean one way?
You know, there's still debate. Both theories have evidence and supporters. It's even possible both played a role in how the word developed in English. Languages are complex like that.
True.
But I think the crucial takeaway, regardless of where the name originated, is what Easter means now. Today, it is absolutely, fundamentally, a Christian holiday celebrating the resurrection of Jesus Christ.
Right. The name might have these historical echoes, but the core meaning today is Christian.
Precisely.
Which brings us right to that core, the religious tradition of Easter. For billions of people, that's what it's all about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You really can't overstate its importance. Easter is considered the holiest day in the entire Christian calendar. It celebrates the resurrection of Jesus Christ.
Which the New Testament says happened 3 days after his crucifixion.
That's right. Crucified by the Romans, likely around 30 A.D. And that resurrection event, it's the bedrock of Christian faith. Everything rests on it.
So what's the significance? What does the resurrection represent in Christian belief? Why is it the bedrock?
Well, it's seen as the ultimate victory. The triumph of good over evil, of life over death, sin, even the limitations of the physical body.
Oh, okay.
It signifies that death couldn't hold Jesus, and crucially, it offers the promise of new life, eternal life, to believers.
Yeah.
So Easter Sunday, it marks the end of that solemn Lent period, the climax of Holy Week, the end of the 3-day period called the Easter Triduum.
Right.
And it also kicks off the joyful Easter season in the church year. It's just this profound moment of hope, renewal, and victory.
A truly pivotal event. Okay. So we have the central religious meaning, which is huge. But then Easter also has all these other traditions wrapped up in it, things that seem, well, less directly religious, like the eggs, the bunny, where they fit.
That's one of the most fascinating parts, I think, how Easter weaves in these traditions that actually have much older roots, often in pre-Christian pagan celebrations.
Celebrating spring.
Exactly, celebrating spring, fertility, renewal, the whole shift in seasons.
Like the eggs. They're just so iconic for Easter, aren't they?
Totally iconic. And the egg is a symbol. It goes way back. Ancient Egyptians, Persians, Romans, lots of cultures saw the egg as this powerful symbol of rebirth, of new life, just waiting to burst out.
Like potential.
Perfect word. Potential. And they'd often exchange eggs during their own spring festivals, long before Easter as we know it.
So how did this ancient symbol get tied specifically to the Christian story of resurrection?
Well, Christians saw a parallel. The egg came to symbolize Jesus emerging from the tomb. You know, the tomb seemed sealed, lifeless, like an eggshell. But then life emerges.
Ah, okay. I see the symbolism there.
And there's a practical side, too.
Yeah.
Remember Lent and the fasting?
Yeah, people gave things up.
Right. And traditionally, eggs were one of the foods people abstained from during those 40 days. So come Easter Sunday, what do you have?
A lot of eggs.
Exactly. A surplus of eggs. So people would boil them, decorate them, and share them as part of the celebration, marking the end of the fast.
And that leads to egg hunts.
That's a major origin, yeah. Decorating and hiding those eggs became a fun tradition.
What about coloring them? Is that also old?
It seems to be.
Yeah.
Dyeing Easter eggs has been a practice for centuries, especially in some Middle Eastern Christian communities, like among Assyrians.
Interesting.
And in Orthodox Christian tradition, there's a specific practice of painting eggs red
Red. Why red?
to symbolize the blood Jesus shed during the crucifixion. So even the colors carry deep meaning within the faith.
Wow. Okay. That adds another layer. Now, the bunny. We have to talk about the Easter bunny. A giant rabbit delivering chocolate. Where on earth did that come from?
Right. It seems a bit random at first glance. The origins likely trace back again to German folklore. Remember Eostre, the potential namesake goddess?
Yeah, the spring goddess with the hair symbol.
Exactly. In German traditions, there was this figure called the Osterhaus, the Easter hare. Like eggs, rabbits, and hares are ancient symbols of fertility and spring because, well, they're known for reproducing quickly.
Okay, makes sense. So there was an Easter hare figure.
Yeah. And the folklore said this hare would sort of judge children's behavior during the Easter season.
Like Santa Claus.
Kind of. If the kids were good, the Easter hare would bring them colored eggs, maybe some candy or small toys, often hidden in nests or baskets the children made.
So German immigrants probably brought that tradition over.
That's the prevailing theory, yes. They
Really?
brought the Osterhaus tradition likely to places like Pennsylvania first, and over time, it morphed into the Easter bunny figure we know.
And how did this folkloric bunny get so intertwined with the Christian meaning of Easter?
Well, again, it seems to be about symbolic resonance. The bunny and the eggs, both representing new life, fertility, the energy of springtime, they meshed well with the core Christian message of resurrection and new life in Christ.
So they sort of took on a Christian gloss over time.
You could say that. The symbols were already associated with the season, and they found a place within the Christian celebration, alluding now perhaps to the new life emerging from the tomb, just like the themes of spring. It added this playful, child-friendly element that became really popular.
It's another example of that blending we talked
Yeah,
about.
exactly. Folklore and faith weaving together over centuries.
So looking back at everything we've talked about, Easter is clearly so much more complex than just a single day or a single tradition.
Definitely. It's this incredible intersection, isn't it? You have this profoundly important religious event, the resurrection at its heart.
Mhm.
But it's celebrated with customs and even a name that seemed to draw on much older traditions. Traditions tied to the seasons, to nature, to pre-Christian beliefs about renewal.
Yeah, we covered the whole when of it tied to the moon and the sun, the why of the name, with those possible links to Eostre or Pasha.
Right, and then how these ancient symbols, the egg and the bunny, found their way into the celebration, representing new life alongside the Christian message of resurrection.
It really paints a picture of how holidays evolve, how they absorb different influences over time.
It really does. This deep dive, I think, it highlights how these powerful ancient symbols of spring and new beginnings became interwoven with the absolute central event of the Christian faith.
Creating this rich tapestry, really.
That's a perfect word for it, a rich tapestry of customs.
Yeah.
And maybe, thinking about that tapestry is something for our listeners to consider.
How so?
Well, just reflecting on how these different threads, the ancient symbols, the core religious meaning, come together in their own experience or understanding of Easter. What parts of this blend resonate most, and why?
That's a great final thought. It's a holiday with so many layers, right?
Yeah, exactly. And maybe understanding those layers, that history, can make the experience even richer, even more meaningful, whatever your connection to it might be.